Bienvenue pour la conférence
Welcome to
de
the press
presse de Mon Roi, un
conference for
film
the
signé
film Mon
Maïwenn,
Roi,
avec
directed
donc
by Maïwenn,
Vincent Cassel
starring
et
Vincent
Emmanuelle
Cassel and
Bercot.
Emmanuelle Bercot.
Il ne va pas tarder à rejoindre cette salle. Bonne conférence
They
de
will
presse
be
à tous.
answering
On se retrouve tout à
questions
l'heure
from the
avec,
press
l'équipe
very
du
soon, and we'll see you
Garrel.
later on.
Alors, il y a des au premier rang, ils sont là, tu sais.
Ici, il n'y avait personne.
Monsieur.
Sans branler.
Mais
Vous ne connaissez pas.
merci aux photographes d'aller vous asseoir
Thank
et
you.
de
Could the
laisser
photographers please
s'asseoir
take a
au
seat?
premier rang de la conférence de presse quelques-uns des acteurs du film.
And some of the actors in the film
Quelques-uns
will
des
be
acteurs de
sitting
Mon Roi.
in the front row of the room. Some of the actors from Mon Roi.
Bien. Et Ibsen.
En effet, si on peut noter la présence au premier rang de quelques-uns des acteurs du film, je
In
vais
the
vous
first
demander de
row,
vous
we
lever
have
à
some
l'annonce de
actors
votre nom.
from the film. I'll read out
Amanda
your
Aded,
names. Amanda Dead,
Abdallah Dalla,
Abdallah Nada,
Nabil Keshwen,
Nadine Keshwen,
pardon,
Keshwen, I beg your pardon,
Keshwen, Norman Tavo
Norman Tavo,
et Christelle Saint-Louis
Christelle
Augustin.
Saint-Louis Augustin.
Et sinon, à l'extrémité de la table,
And
le
at the
producteur
far end
Alain
of the
Attal des
table, we
films
have
du
the
Trésor,
producer,
complice fidèle
Alain
bien sûr de Guillaume
Attal,
Canet.
very faithful to
aussi
Guillaume
du
Canet,
précédent film de
producer of the
Maïwenn,
preceding
Police.
film, Police
À sa
by
droite,
Maïwenn.
Étienne Comar,
On his right,
co-scénariste du
Etienne
film,
Comar,
et
co-script
scénariste notamment
writer,
des deux derniers films de
who
Xavier
wrote
Beauvois,
the last two
La
films
rançon de
of
la gloire et des
Xavier
hommes et des
Beauvois,
dieux,
La
Grand
rançon
Prix
de la
du
gloire,
Festival
des
de
hommes et des
Cannes,
dieux, Grand
2010.
Prize
À sa
in
droite,
2010.
Louis
Louis
Garrel,
Garrel, who
son César
for
du
quite
meilleur
some
espoir
time
obtenu en
confirmed
2005
the
pour les
Caesar he got in
réguliers de son père,
2005,
Philippe Garrel, et qui est souvent venu
and
à
who
Cannes.
has
Il
often come
était
to
d'ailleurs l'an
Cannes.
dernier avec le
Last year he
Saint-Laurent de
came
Bertrand
with
Bonello.
Saint-Laurent by
Après avoir
Bertrand
réalisé trois
Bonello.
courts-métrages, il présente cette
After
année son
making
premier
3
long
shorts, he's
à la scène de
presenting
la
his
Critique
first
depuis 2
feature
années.
film at
À ma
the
gauche, Emmanuelle
Critics
Bercot,
Fortnight.
aussi actrice
Emmanuelle
et
Bercot,
réalisatrice de
actress and director.
l'ouverture du festival, son
Of course, her
film
film Standing Tall was the curtain raiser. She played in the preceding film Police by Maïwenn.
Dans Mon Roi, elle retrouve d'ailleurs
In Mon Roi,
comme partenaire l'une de ses
as a
actrices
partner,
fétiches,
she has one of her favorite actresses.
à sa droite,
On her
Vincent
right,
Cassel,
Vincent Cassel,
présente plus vraiment,
who no
sinon,
longer needs an introduction.
sinon quand même qu'il a obtenu le César du
He
meilleur
obtained
acteur
a
en
Caesar
2009
for the
son
Best Actor in
proposition
2009
pour
for
que ses passages à
Mesrine,
Cannes, notamment dans
and
La Haine
he
en
was in
96
Cannes for La Haine and The Irreversible in 2002, and his presence was clearly noted.
The Tale of Tales de Matteo Garonne, qui a
He
été
is also
présenté
in
en
the
compétition
film The
il y a
Tale of
quelques
Tales,
jours.
Matteo
Au
Garrone,
centre de la
which was
table,
projected a few
enfin,
days ago.
l'actrice
And
devenue
in the middle, we
réalisatrice
have
Maïwenn.
the actress who's become a director, Maïwenn.
C'est le track, pardon, c'est le track. Dont le troisième film, Police, a été l'un des événements.
Her
du
third
Festival
film,
de Cannes
Police, was
2011.
quite an event in
Elle a
Cannes
obtenu
in
le prix du
2011.
jury.
It got the
Voici
jury
donc de retour
prize.
4 ans après,
And she's
avec son
back 4
quatrième
years later with her fourth film,
écrit, réalisé, mais dans lequel, pour la
written
première fois,
and
elle ne joue pas.
directed
Alors,
by
première
her,
question
but she's
évidente,
not an actress in it. So the first question is fairly obvious, Maïwenn.
Est-ce qu'il a été clair dans votre
Was it
esprit,
clear
dès que
in
vous
your
avez entamé le
mind,
projet,
as soon as you
que
began
vous
this
ne joueriez pas
project,
dedans?
that you would not act in the film?
Pourquoi?
Yes. Why?
J'avais fait une espèce de trilogie.
I had made a sort of a narcissistic trilogy, and I wanted to turn up in a tracksuit in the morning and focus solely on the actors. With each new film, you want to do something different and new, so this was one of the new things I wanted to try out. Also, I wanted to have Emmanuelle in the film. Why?
Et pourquoi pas?
Well, why not? I remember she said to me, either she's in the film or I won't make it. It was quite clear. I said, no, Julia, it's going to be Emmanuelle. And Emmanuelle said, I love the way she laughs. It's true. You said that to me.
Et Vincent, elle vous a dit la même
And
chose,
Vincent, did she say the
si
same
tu
to
ne le fais pas,
you?
je ne le fais pas.
If you don't accept the part, I won't make the film? No, she didn't say that to me.
Non, parce que je voulais pas.
No,
foutre la
because
pression, mais dans ma
I didn't
tête,
want to put pressure on
je me disais
him.
pas, je ne le ferai pas parce que personne n'est irremplaçable.
No
Mais je me
one's
disais, je ne sais pas comment
irreplaceable,
je ferais,
but
n'est-ce pas,
I didn't know how I would make the film without her.
Le choix desquels on a parlé au début de cette
It's right at the very beginning when she talked about the script, it was quite obvious
En fait,
travailler avec
c'était
Emmanuelle.
that Maïwenn wanted to work with
90%
Emmanuelle.
avant que je vois Vincent, parce que je le connaissais pas.
I didn't know Vincent, that I had a drink with him, and then I was absolutely 110% sure that he was the right person.
La force du film,
Question for Etienne and Maïwenn. It's a very powerful film. You focus almost exclusively on the highlights of this relationship, the good times and the bad times, the destructive moments. We see the intimacy of this couple. You don't see their social life except when she goes to have dinner with friends, for example. Is that a decision you took very early on in the shooting? I had so many things to say about their relationship, the relationship of just those two people, that I wanted to depict them in their life with their parents, their friends, their work, but there were so many things that I wanted to show. The film spans 10 years in the life of a couple, but you only have 2 hours. And Etienne constantly encouraged me to stick to the topic, because I tended to meander into other areas. The script was 300 pages. We could have had part 1 and part 2, for example. There was so much material, and bit by bit, we decided to focus only on the 2 main characters. That was a choice in terms of theatricals, and also we wanted to show the intimacy of the couple. And what about the flashbacks? Was that an obvious choice? The love story is something I've depicted in all my films for the past 10 years. Recently, a friend talked about an accident he'd had and how he had stayed in a rehabilitation center, and that fascinated me. So I wanted to make a film about that too. As each film takes between 2 and 4 years, and time is marching on, I thought I'll make 2 films in one. And at the same time, one can focus on the things one really wants to concentrate on. And also, I could jump around in time. And Tony, the female character, in this way could have a bit of hindsight in her judgment of past events. In an interview, Emmanuelle, you said you hesitated before accepting.
Parce que j'avais peur.
I was afraid.
Parce que ça me paraissait... Bon, moi, c'est un cadeau extraordinaire que m'a fait Maïwenn.
It's an extraordinary gift that Maïwenn gave me when she offered me this character.
Trop lourd, peut-être,
but I felt perhaps it was too much for my frail shoulders. I feared that I might not live up to her expectations and her great faith in me. That was the first point. Second, when I read the script, I said to Maïwenn, you need to have a much more beautiful girl, a girl with long, slender legs. And she said to me, it's my film. I'm the director. I know what's best. What convinced me, well, I didn't really need to be convinced because I dreamt of being in a film again with Maïwenn. I can't remember what I was going to say now. What convinced you? Yes, what convinced me was that I love Maïwenn's work. I have full trust in her. So I said to myself, well, if she chooses you, it's because she believes in me. So I hesitated out of fear. When she talked to me about the film for the first time, the script wasn't ready, and I needed to read the script to see if I was capable of doing what she expected. With Maïwenn, you really need to go the whole hog. You can't just half-act. And Vincent, did you hesitate? No, I really loved her preceding films, and in particular, Police. When she called me, I
En fait, il m'a jamais dit oui.
very quickly said yes. In fact, he never said yes.
C'est que quand
I'd
il
like
a
to
lu le
specify that.
scénario,
He
il m'a
read the
appelé,
script
il
and
m'a
he
dit,
called me up
on
and
se
said,
voit, ok, on se
shall
voit, là,
we
dans
get
une
together
heure.
and see
Il
each
a
other? I
passé
said
une heure et
yes,
demie
in
à
an
me dire
hour's
tout ce qu'il
time.
aimait pas.
And he spent an hour and a half telling me all about what he didn't like. And then at the end I said, okay, so it's no good, I have to work on it again. He said, no, it's okay.
Pas trop.
So I wondered, and I called the producer and I said, well, I think he said yes, but I'm not quite sure why he said yes. During the filming, I understood that he was like that. He needs to be totally plunged in his work. He likes playing the devil's advocate.
C'est-à-dire que moi, ce que je vois dans ces deux réponses,
In these two answers, what I note is that actresses have doubts and directors have doubts, and that was perhaps the topic of the film, and I'm in the middle. I don't understand what you mean. I'll tell you later. But I always wanted to play in this film. I worked on the film with Maïwenn and Emmanuelle, and I ended up going into new territories, new waters, with apparently a total liberty. I'd like all films to be like that. What touched you in this character who is fairly despicable? I'd like to say something right at the beginning. In the script, I felt the character was really despicable. And I made tremendous efforts, and Maïwenn agreed with this in the end. I made tremendous efforts to save him. I really fought for the status of men. People always say it's difficult being a woman. I have no doubt as to that. But it's also very difficult to be a man, particularly in a love story. Why are you looking at me? How would you define your character? You're the brother of Tony, who speaks words of wisdom, is a very reasonable character, and he has a couple which seems very serene and peaceful in terms of its love. When I met Maïwenn the first time and I read the script, I said, yes, this keenly interests me.
Ah non, quelqu'un qui... Moi, je ne peux pas ne pas vous répondre, hein, Jean-Pierre. C'est pas possible, hein. Alors, ce que je voulais dire, non, quand j'ai rencontré, je voyais bien que le focus de son
I saw
histoire
that the focus of the tale was Vincent and Emmanuelle. But I thought to myself, well, maybe it'll be pleasurable looking at a different character who's going to be very protective, even if he spends most of his time saying things aren't going to work out well. Things don't work out well, but he's always there. Well, things work well to begin with. Louis, that is Solal, fears that things won't work out very well. First of all, he's extremely funny because he tries to warn his sister. But then, of course, Vincent constantly said, well, be careful, Louis. Don't forget the status of men. It's true. I haven't seen the film, but I saw most of the shooting. To start with, the male character didn't have so many different facets. When you shoot a film, you can criticize the screenplay. Vincent felt like saying, well, it's not all that easy, Maïwenn, to be a man faced with a woman in this relationship. It was a very interesting experience. First question. For a French website. Congratulations on your film, which I really liked. I have a question for Vincent Cassel. Did you improvise a lot? You appeared very spontaneous in the film. Yes. But you have to be careful with the word improvisation. Improvisation can mean just about anything. Actors always improvise. It's just that the words they come out with are often written down. When we read the text that was written, Maïwenn often said, well, don't do that. Don't just read the text. So we ended up embroidering. There was a written situation, and we talked and added things based on our experience and our own personalities. So we ended up with really long improvised takes that were directed, after all. And then during the editing, she kept just what she liked. We were very free. There were 2 cameras a lot of the time. For a lot of people, that may not be very meaningful, but it gives us tremendous freedom because things can be edited as we like. So yes, there was a huge amount of improvisation. Emmanuelle, do you like improvising? Well, following this experience, yes, it's something I really love. To answer your question, that's what scared me too. I said to Maïwenn, but, well, I'm not really great at improvisation. Sometimes I'm not very good at expressing my thoughts or my feelings. I feared, therefore, that I would be speechless and not know what to say during the shooting. But then when you have Vincent with you, everything becomes much easier. Yes, it is a passionately interesting experience. Vincent tended to say things that made me laugh, and filming with Maïwenn is like being in really deep shit, but it lasts all day. In fact, what is magnificent is that you can't be just part there. You also have to be very much present with the other person. Maïwenn puts us in a situation where there's general improvisation. They have to listen to each other. That's the thing. When you improvise, you come out with things that you may not want necessarily to show, but it looks really good. Rodrigo Fonseca, TV Globo Brazil.
Maïwenn, comment avez-vous discuté l'image avec votre chef-op?
How did you discuss the photography with the director of photography? In this film, contrary to the others, I really knew what I wanted. In my previous films, people could choose what they liked to do. This time, I wanted to accompany the actors and actresses. I wanted the camera to be very, very present and close up in order to focus on what the actor was doing and seeing. I didn't particularly want to have too natural lighting. I didn't want something overly sophisticated. And I like cameras on the shoulder. It's very lively. I don't like putting pressure on people. It's important for the actors, granted, but for everyone in the crew to know how to move around the set. And then what I try to do, of course, is to ensure that everything is very aesthetic.
L'opératrice du film s'appelle Claire Maton.
Claire Maton never talks, but looks a lot. She's an animal. No, when you talk about improvisation, it means you have 25-minute takes. That's very modern. It's very customary with these new cameras in the cinema. 25 minutes is very tiring for the cameraman, for the people in charge of the soundtrack, and for actors. When you sense that on the set you have people who are highly concentrated, it's fabulous. Claire Maton and Joanne Lebesco, the 2 cameramen, were highly concentrated, and that encourages us to be so as well. They created this very concentrated atmosphere. It's a way for them to really identify with the scenes.
Bonjour,
Karin Bat, Huffington Post. I have a question for Maïwenn and for Emmanuelle as well. For the women.
un peu provocateur, c'est que
My question is a bit
le film
provocative.
montre très
The
bien,
film
l'addiction qu'une femme peut
clearly
avoir
shows
pour son
the
roi. Je pense qu'il y a plein
addiction
de
a
femmes
woman
qui
can
peuvent
have
identifier
for
avec
her
cette
king,
problématique
for her
qui dure pour
roi.
des années.
And I'm sure many
Et je me
women
demande,
in
qu'est-ce que
the
vous
room
pensez
were
de
able
ce
to
problème
identify
comme
with
quelque
that.
chose
What do you
plutôt
think about
féminine,
this issue? Do you
de
think
voir
it's a
si vous pensez- qu'est-ce que
specifically
vous pensez de ça? Et deuxième
female
question,
problem?
c'est dans
And if
ce
so, what do you
film,
think about it?
elle pense que à son humeur et un peu à son
In
fils.
this
On voit
film,
pas qu'elle
she
pense à
thinks
son travail ou des
constantly
autres
about
valeurs ou des
her
autres choses. Et je me
son
demande
and
si
not
vous
much
avez
about
fait
her
exprès
work or
que
her
cette,
values. Did you do this on
passion
purpose?
prendre son identité complètement plus que
This
toutes ces
passion
autres choses dans sa vie.
seems to, in fact,
Méga réponse.
destroy her own personal
Alors,
identity.
contrairement à vous, je
Contrary
ne pense
to
pas que
you,
l'addiction concerne
I
que les
don't think
femmes.
that this kind
Je
of
pense
addiction
que les
concerns
hommes ont
only
une
women.
façon
I
très
think that
différente
men
de la
have a
gérer,
very
mais qui
different
sont
way
tout
of
aussi
managing it, but
Enfin,
they're
en tout cas,
equally
dans mon film,
addict.
le Giorgio
In my
que j'ai
film,
écrit,
the
il est
Giorgio I
accro à la
created
femme qu'il aime.
is
C'est
addicted to
et
the
d'ailleurs,
woman
il
he
l'explique
loves.
très bien dans le film, je trouve.
And
Il
he
dit juste
explains
qu'il
it
a
in
une
the
manière
film.
différente
It's just that he has a
d'être
different
accro à
way
elle,
of
de
being
se battre
addicted.
pour, son couple.
He has a different way of
Voilà, je pense
fighting
que
for his
les hommes
couple.
et les femmes, ils ont les mêmes
Men
sentiments
and
et
women
ça
have the
s'exprime pas de la
same
même
feelings,
manière.
but
Voilà.
they express them differently.
Comme je vous ai dit tout à l'heure, c'est
As I
difficile
said
de
earlier
tout
on,
mettre,
it's very
dans un
difficult
film.
to put everything in a
C'est-à-dire,
film.
tout ce qui,
In other words,
court-circuite et qui aide à
everything
aimer et à se
that
battre pour aimer, c'est-à-dire la famille, les
helps
amis,
one to love and to
l'argent,
continue
le
to
travail.
love, that is
Et j'ai fait
family,
des choix. Donc, dans le
money,
scénario, il y avait beaucoup
work,
plus de
friends.
scènes
I had to make
de
choices.
Tony en train de
There were
travailler,
many
de
more
défendre,
scenes of Tony who was
les affaires
working,
qu'elle défendait, puisqu'elle est
defending
avocate.
her cases
Mais à un
because
moment
she's
donné,
a
il a fallu
lawyer.
faire un choix et j'ai
But I had to
préféré
make certain choices.
centrer
And in the
sur,
end, I
les
decided
sentiments
to
qu'ils ont l'un
focus
envers l'autre
on
plutôt
their
que de
mutual
s'égarer.
feelings
Et je
instead
trouvais que
of
les scènes
meandering.
de Tony au travail
And the scene where you see Tony
risquait
at
d'égarer
work, well, I thought
le
these scenes
spectateur.
might
Mais,
in fact
je pense
distract
que
these
les
spectators.
femmes, tout comme les hommes,
Women,
dès qu'il y a
just like men,
une histoire d'amour
as
passionnel,
soon as
la
there is a
solution,
passionate
c'est
love
de
affair,
travailler.
the solution
Et
consists in
contrairement à vous,
work.
je trouve qu'on sent quand
And
même
contrary to
petit à
you,
petit, au fur et à
one
mesure
can
du film,
sense as the film
qu'elle
unfolds that
que sa
she
solution à elle pour s'en
decides
sortir
that her
psychologiquement,
solution, in
c'est
order
de
to
travailler,
survive
c'est de se donner
psychologically,
à fond dans son
consists in
travail. Et
working,
je crois qu'on le voit à la
extremely
fin, quand
hard.
on les voit tous les deux en train de
And you see them at the
manger
end
du
of the
jambon là, dans une
film,
brasserie.
eating
On voit qu'elle
in a café, a
à
brasserie.
choisir entre
You can see
la volonté de Giorgio de la garder
that
pour elle
Giorgio
et
wants
la
to
volonté
keep her
de
to himself,
s'affranchir dans son travail. On voit
yet
bien qu'elle sait quand même
she wants to gain her independence through her work. And she realizes that this is very salutary. She understands the man, that Giorgio loves her, but in a very possessive way. Tony realizes that it's totally impossible to achieve fulfillment because she clearly saw in Giorgio's eyes that he wasn't happy about her professional success. Of course,
jusqu'à l'enfer, sauf quand elle voit
she's prepared to love him at all costs, except when she comes to realize that he's not happy with her professional career and success. One has to be careful with these relationships, particularly when one's partner wants to keep the other person at a very low level professionally. Maïwenn
par nature très addictive et d'autres qui
probably feels like me, that some people tend to develop addictions more than others. There's no general rule. In Maïwenn's film, Giorgio can't live without Tony either. They're totally bound together. They can't manage to separate. They can't cope when they're together, and they can't cope when they're apart. Except that she hurts him less than he hurts her. Not sure about that.
Il y a juste une petite chose sur laquelle je mets toujours un
There's
bémol, c'est
something that I
les femmes
want
sont
to
comme ça,
add.
les hommes sont comme ça.
People say
Je suis pas
women
sûr
are
non
like
plus, je crois que
this,
ça dépend
men
vraiment
are
des
like that.
individus.
But I think
En
it
tout cas, je
depends
l'espère.
on the individual. At least I hope so.
Question là à droite. Derrière les... Ah non, voilà.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Olivia. Je
Olivia.
suis d'IMPR Agency, représentante pour l'actrice Joy Villa. Je voulais savoir quelle
would
était
like
votre
to
scène que
know
vous avez préférée tourner
which scene
tout le film.
you
Votre scène
preferred
préférée.
shooting in the
Franchement,
film.
je les aime toutes. Enfin,
I
je
love
me
all
donne,
the scenes.
à 200% pour chaque scène. J'ai l'impression que c'est un
I want
combat
every
pour chaque
scene to be
scène.
perfect.
À chaque
It's,
début de scène, je
I
me
fight
dis,
for each scene.
comment je vais
At
faire
the beginning
pour
of each
sortir,
scene, I say to myself,
à la
well,
fois,
how am I going to manage this?
un état de grâce,
How am I
un
going
ton,
to achieve perfection?
un
How am I
ton
going
réalisme, de mettre une petite touche
to
d'humour.
make things appear realistic? What about a touch of
Il y a des scènes
humor?
que j'appréhendais,
There are
évidemment.
scenes
Puis il y
that
a
I
des scènes que
was
j'avais
more
enlevées dans le
scared of
scénario.
than
Puis au
others.
fur et à mesure du tournage, je me disais,
And then
il
as the
faut les
filming
remettre.
progressed, there were certain scenes
Et puis
which
le
I
film était
didn't
surtout
want to
tourné
include, which I
dans
did
l'ordre chronologique
include.
de leur histoire.
The film
pour pouvoir,
was shot in chronological order.
s'il se passait des choses importantes dans les impros pour pouvoir rebondir sur
Because it was
l'histoire d'après,
important,
enfin la
given
scène
the
d'après.
improvisation, that the subsequent scene should take up on that improvisation.
C'est Colette Khalaf de l'Orient le
Colette
jour,
Khalaf
du Liban.
Ah oui.
from Lebanon.
Vous avez dit que vous
You
vous êtes
said
inspiré
that you
d'un
drew
accident d'une amie
inspiration from the
pour parler du centre
accident
de rééducation.
of a
Vous
friend
n'avez pas
who spent
parlé
time in a
de quelle
rehabilitation
histoire d'amour
center.
vous vous êtes inspiré pour
What
parler
love
de ce
story
film.
did you draw
Non, c'est pas que je me suis
inspiration
inspirée
from?
d'une amie
I
dans un
didn't draw
centre de rééducation.
inspiration from
Il y a
a
une amie
friend
qui m'a
in a
raconté
rehabilitation
comment
center.
elle s'est
I have a
guérie
friend
dans un
who
centre de
told me
rééducation
how he
et
was cured in a
ce qui m'avait
rehabilitation
touchée, c'était
center.
comment c'était une femme avocate qui s'est, enfin, mais ça n'a rien à voir avec le. J'avais de toute façon décidé que
I
Tony
decided
serait avocate, mais
that Tony would be a
ce qui m'avait
lawyer.
touchée, c'était de
What touched me in
quand
the
elle m'a dit
story
qu'elle
of
s'est
my
retrouvée
friend
avec des
was
gens
that
avec
she said
lesquels elle n'aurait jamais pu se
she
retrouver
ended up with
dans
people
sa
who
vie
she
normale.
would never have
Et le fait
encountered in
qu'elle
her
se soit
normal
sentie
life.
complètement infantilisée dans
And
le centre de
she
rééducation,
felt that she was
et qu'au fur et à mesure,
being
avec les gens
made
jeunes,
to feel
de
like a
métiers
child in
différents,
this rehabilitation center.
origines différentes,
And
elle
she
est
met people
pu se
from all
reconstruire.
walks of
Mais,
life, and thanks to that, she
ça,
was
c'est un
able to
micro-détail par
recover.
rapport à-
But that's
au
just a
travail
tiny
que
little
Étienne et moi, on a
detail
fait.
compared
Et
with
l'histoire
the work
d'amour,
done by Etienne and
c'est
myself.
simple.
As
Je
to
pense
the love
que
story,
chaque
it's very
couple
simple.
rencontre
I
des
think
problèmes
each
d'infidélité,
couple
des problèmes avec les
has
sous,
problems
avec
with
le passé de
unfaithfulness,
chacun, la
with
famille de
the
chacun. Et puis
past
surtout, c'est
of the partner or his or
c'est
her
l'histoire
family.
universelle de tout le monde. C'est comment ça
It's
se passe
like a
quand
universal
deux personnes
tale.
s'aiment, mais qui sont
Two people
radicalement
fall in
opposées,
love,
qu'ils n'ont
but
pas
they
le
may
même
be radically
biologique,
different.
qu'ils n'aiment pas,
They may
pas les
not
mêmes
like
centres
the
d'intérêt,
same
les
things.
mêmes passions,
They
la
may
même
not have the same
visibilité
passions.
d'éducation pour
They
les
may not
enfants.
have the same
C'est
views on
l'histoire de tout le
education
monde.
for
Donc,
their children.
voilà,
That's
j'essaie juste d'inventer
the history
des
of all
choses,
couples.
par
I
rapport à
just
ces
tried
critères-là, en fait.
to develop a film around those criteria.
C'est le fait que dans une relation amoureuse, on a tous
In a couple and a loving relationship, one always has these feelings. You think you know the person you live with, yet as time goes by, you may discover certain mysteries and depths. This is a feeling we all have in differing degrees. It's a very powerful sentiment, a very powerful feeling. This is what Maïwenn wanted to express, and it's transfigured in the film.
C'est pour ça notamment que sur le personnage joué par Vincent,
we have the character played by Vincent, and there is a huge amount of mystery. One's often surprised to see what happens. Yes, I wanted people to identify with Tony. I wanted people to discover things at the same time she did.
Oui, bonjour, Morgane, le magazine Le Mensuel.
Morgan, Le Mensuel.
Que je trouve assez
There's something that I find wonderful in the film. In a film, we are used to hearing people talk. In this film, there are a lot of silences.
Dans le présent. Et je trouve qu'il y a un fort langage des corps.
And body language is very powerful. Was this very complicated to shoot and to play? There are a lot of nude scenes, even under the shower. These are difficult scenes to play.
C'est quelque chose qui m'a toujours j'ai toujours eu envie de
I
filmer
always
ça.
wanted to film this.
Bizarrement,
Strangely
je trouve ça
enough,
assez sexy, les gens
I
qui
find it quite
en
sexy.
fauteuil roulant qui se
People
qui se
in a
reconstruisent.
wheelchair who are trying to recover.
Et puis j'étais tombée par hasard sur le
And just by
passage
chance,
du genou
I've
que la psy dit dans le film.
Found this
à partir de cette
quote
phrase-là,
used by the psychiatrist in the film about knees, and that gave me the keys to building the film.
Non, c'était pas trop. Enfin, j'ai pas trouvé
So
ça plus
I didn't
compliqué.
find this any more
que les autres
complicated
scènes
than
à
other
filmer.
scenes to film. Emmanuelle
Elle chipote pas du tout pour la nudité et pour autre chose d'ailleurs.
doesn't mind appearing in the nude.
Enfin, ça veut pas dire que.
Well, that doesn't mean.
Non, mais c'est-à-dire qu'elle elle était d'accord avec moi sur l'idée que
It just means that she agreed with me because it's part of the history, the story of the film, because she has to reconstruct her body, so to speak. That was just an inevitable stage.
Oui, oui, je peux donner mon avis là-dessus.
Yes, I can give my view on this too.
Déjà, de toute façon, enfin, vous
In
parlez
any
du
event,
corps
you're
quand
talking
on
about the
travaille
body.
avec Maïwenn, mais
When
je
you
pense
work
peut-être
with
même plus qu'avec
Maïwenn,
qui que ce soit, en tout cas,
maybe
pour moi,
more
c'était
than
le
with
cas. Et
other
puis, en plus,
people, this was the
et puis,
case
en
for
plus,
me
vu
in
qu'elle-
any
elle
event.
m'offrait ce rôle
And
incroyable,
because she
je
was
savais qu'il fallait que je
offering
me donne
me
vraiment corps
this
et âme.
incredible role, I knew I had to throw
toute cette
myself
partie du
into it,
cerf,
body and
à vrai
soul.
dire, moi, c'est ce que...
Le CERF, c'est le centre de rééducation.
And at
Toute la partie où elle est en
the
rééducation, c'est ce qui m'attirait le
rehabilitation
plus au
center,
départ,
that really attracted me,
dans
in
le film.
fact,
Parce
to
que
the
moi,
film.
ce
It's the part I
que
almost
j'aime le
like
plus,
best
c'est
to
justement
start with,
jouer avec mon corps.
because I like
Et que je
to
savais que là-bas, j'aurais
be
un
able
vaste champ pour ça.
to focus on my body, and I knew there would be ample scope for this in the rehabilitation center. Obviously, I didn't suffer because of my knee, but I had to depict almost true pain. I had to be able to feel things properly, and that I found passionately interesting.
Voilà. Moi, je trouve que c'est vrai que les acteurs français,
It's
même
true that French
les réalisateurs
actors
français
and even French directors
ne jouent pas avec leur corps. Et là, ce film, il
don't
offrait vraiment... D'ailleurs, moi, j'ai terminé le
depict
film, mais j'étais
bodies so
couverte de
much,
bleu.
but I was full
Mais
of
ça me paraît
bruises
normal.
by the end of the film.
Je vous jure que je l'ai pas frappée pourtant.
I didn't hit her.
Non, non, mais il faut y aller, il faut
It was simply necessary. One had to
Enfin, moi, c'est comme ça que je vois le cinéma.
give oneself body and soul to the film.
On a ce champ-là pour s'exprimer.
One had tremendous scope for this body language.
Oui. Quoi? Non. Alain, vous vouliez dire quelque chose?
Did you want to add
Non, c'est
something,
toujours
Alain?
mon corps, moi, qui me fait flipper. Moi, ça me fait toujours rire.
Yes, it's this business
Non,
of
Louis
body
s'inquiétait
language.
qu'on parte un peu trop en film sur le corps, un petit peu
No,
post-moderne.
maybe we shouldn't focus on a sort of postmodern film on body or body language. I think that body language in the film is very important. It's very important in the cinema as a whole, in fact.
Dans un espace de liberté comme ça avec les caméras.
When you
Faut
have
savoir quand même
such
que sur un film de
freedom
Maïwenn, c'est pas du tout des, c'est
on
pas du tout
a
académique.
set, when you're working with
C'est-à-dire que déjà, le fait de tourner
Maïwenn,
à
it's
deux
not at
caméras,
all academic. There are constantly
fait
two
que
cameras. Hence,
Elle bouge les caméramans
she
pendant les
moves,
prises.
she gets the cameraman to move during the takes. They even change their
Pendant les prises.
focus points during the takes. Sometimes she says, no, narrow the field. It didn't bother me to overly. You just have to concentrate on something different. You know, there's something really organic taking place. And we got lots of bruises because people are moving so much. And I think this freedom that transpires in the film and the physical aspect, the body language in the film, springs from the fact that the actual shooting was very physical. Things were constantly moving. Nothing was static. Thanks to Claire Maton and others.
Bercot et Louis Garrel.
And Louis Garrel and Emmanuelle Bercot and Vincent, of course. There's a scene which illustrates what you're saying. It's the scene when you see the friends eating together, and you wonder, well, how on earth did Emmanuelle end up in such a state? You don't know whether this is improvisation. It's almost as though there's something really organic in the scene. It's so powerful that you're almost taken aback as a spectator. You're almost surprised to witness the scene. And the glass, well, it's not something you can write when she breaks the glass, the pane. Well, it was planned. Etienne said to me, no, there's no point, that's too hysterical, so I removed that scene. And during the shooting, I saw that at a given point that if the character continued to put up with things, to be a victim and say nothing, the character might annoy us. And I thought, no, the character's got to explode. It's essential. So I thought in my mind that we should have such a scene. I didn't write anything down. And during the shooting, I said to Emmanuelle, this is what I think. And there was actually nothing written whatsoever.
Emmanuelle a été ce qu'on voit dans le film.
Emmanuelle,
dès la première prise, elle était.
As of the very first take, was totally into the film.
Si impressionnante dès le
départ, she was so impressive from the very outset because she didn't prepare things in her head. She didn't anticipate.
Le défaut d'Emmanuelle, c'est qu'elle prépare, elle.
Often Emmanuelle prepares things overly, and she puts a huge amount of pressure on herself. In this case, what I found great was that because she had twofold pressure, because she hadn't prepared, she exploded right away. People thought she was totally drunk. No, she had only drunk water. Emmanuelle?
Oui, mais cette scène, c'est vrai que c'est
It's true that the scene is one of the everlasting memories I have of the shooting. Every day, for months, we had very difficult things to play. And that day it was really cool. It was nifty. I didn't have to cry. I didn't have to shout. It was a very gentle day. And then at the end of the day, Maïwenn said, we're going to shoot an additional scene. You have a picnic. And I thought, great. I thought, great, we're going to eat. It'll be really nice. But she said, you have to be drunk. You have to explode. And I thought, oh, Christ. I don't know how to play that kind of thing. And I panicked, but I said to myself, well, I'll just have to do it. I'll have to really try my best. I know what she wanted. And I said to myself, well, you've just got to succeed. You never know where you're going to end up. The next minute, the next hour, towards the end of the day. That's why I just love working with Maïwenn. That's called taking risks on the set, of course.
Bonjour, Peter van Hout, de la
Peter van Hout, the German television. I quarreled a lot with my female colleagues about the importance of having two female directors in the competition. Maybe you'll be able to support me. I don't think what's important is the fact that you have a female director. What's important is the film. I'd like to seek your views on this. I don't understand this discussion over the past few years. Apparently, it's very fashionable. People keep referring to women here, women there, and then in a couple of years' time, maybe people will start saying, well, there aren't enough Moroccans, or people choose their films. We're not chosen because of our gender or because of this or that. We're chosen because of the film. I would tend to agree with you. Emmanuelle already answered that question at the first press conference. In France, in my generation, this is something that's quite new. There are a large number of women who make films. That's true of my generation and not of the older generation. There are many more women heads of company today as well. It's just part of life. Why are you scolding me?
C'est tout ce que j'ai à vous dire.
That's what I wanted to say.
Une question au fond.
Thank you for the film. I have a question for Vincent Cassel. In your preceding films, they were shot in English. Once you spoke English with a Russian accent. What's it like acting in French again in terms of improvisation? Do you think you would have been at ease with your character in a film in a foreign language? No, of course not. There are limits when you play a part in a foreign lange. Unfortunately, one doesn't have the same freedom as in one's mother tongue. Or else you simply have to decide, well, the guy is not going to speak properly. If it's okay to make grammatical errors, then that's fine. There are no rules in the cinema. That's why it's so great.
Plus de questions?
No further questions?
Merci beaucoup.
Well, then, thank you very much indeed.
Bonne présentation ce soir.
And I wish you a very successful screening tonight.